Hey, welcome back to another episode of HVAC Success Secrets Revealed. We're live at the HR Expo in Chicago. What an event. What a fantastic conversation I had with Michel from Michel. Man who needs no introduction into the trade. That was riveting. That was deep. We covered a lot.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's the founder of ServiceNation, the creator of AirServe as well, and the franchises there. Holy shit, like what a wealth of knowledge this guy has. The experience that he brings to the industry is second to none. His ability to communicate what it is that he believes is coming based on what's happened in the past. I love that part of the episode. I attended his talk here at AHR when he gave a message on what it is to come and how you can prepare as contractors. So we got to dive deep into some of those subjects, and I really, really, really love this conversation.
Yeah, to pull out one highlight, I think is next to impossible from everything that we went over. I'm looking at my notes and I'm like, man, you know what? There's just so much there.
Yeah, we talked about consumer behavior. Right. We talked about the recession. We talked about what you can do as a leader in training and recruiting and
helping your team and sustenance to profit and the idea of wrench to profit and just such a wealth, such a great episode. But of course, we want to hear from you on what your favorite part of today's episode was. So leave a note down in the comments on what your favorite part was. And of course, listen to our sponsors, because without them, guess what? We don't have this show. CHIIRP, Elite Call, and On-Purpose Media. So Elite Call, they are a U.S.-based call center champion for the home service industries for 20 years, actually. They've been outbounding clients' databases, filling dispatch boards with lucrative service and sales appointments, and boosting memberships like no other. They don't make calls. They actually directly integrate into your CRM, giving you a seamless experience. Don't let your competition get ahead. Let Elite Call connect with your customers and fill your board. You can visit them today at elitecall.net right there.
And we've got CHIIRP. Transform your home service business with CHIIRP, the ultimate automation toolbox. Capture more leads. Connect instantly when skyrocket your sales. CHIIRP integrates seamlessly with platforms like ServiceTitan and House Call Pro, offering automated texts, emails, and even ringless voicemails. Boost your Google reviews and customer loyalty with our proven rehash programs. Schedule your demo today and get an exclusive 25% off your first 3 months. Visit chirp.com/HSSR for HVAC Success Secrets Revealed and start boosting your revenue today.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to HVAC Success Secrets Revealed, a show where we interview industry leaders and disruptors, revealing the success secrets to create and unleash the ultimate HVAC business. Now your hosts, Thaddeus and Evan.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of HVAC Success Secrets Revealed, where we have good conversations with good people, and any good conversation worth having is worth having drunk. Cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers.
Matt, Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate you. Today, we have on the distinct honor of bringing on Michel. Matt is the founder of ServiceNation. He started and ran his own business as well, successfully exited from that. Been in the industry for a very long time, had a fantastic message yesterday here at the AHR Expo, and I got to tune into that for a little bit. He's also been putting out these predictions for the last several years now, looking forward at what it is that's going to happen in the upcoming year. And you had some interesting predictions this year, which is why I reached out to you and said, hey, we need to have some conversations because we need to help some people. So thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So how did you get into it? We'll start there. What was the introduction into the trades? Why did you get into HVAC?
Well, first I couldn't spell HVAC. and, I was an engineer and I didn't really know what it meant. I had to look that up. And I was trained to be a manufacturing engineer coming out of college. And I sent letters out and resumes out to the manufacturers in my town. And one of them called me in for an interview and they had ordered some new computer numerical control or CNC equipment.
Right.
And I knew my way around that really well. And I got hired because that was coming in and they wanted somebody that knew how to program it.
Right.
And did that for a couple of years and did well, was good, did a lot of design engineering. And then I got an opportunity to join Lennox Industries as the head of factory automation for 9 factories,
Right.
which, at 24 years old was kind of my dream job. So I leapt and took that job, and found out that it wasn't nearly as much fun as I thought it would be, because when you show up at a manufacturing plant and you say, "Hey, I'm from corporate, I'm here to help," and, they see you as there to take away all the fun projects.
Right.
And so we would go to places like Stuttgart, Arkansas in August, and Marshalltown, Iowa in January. And the marketing guys, I noticed, were going to Orlando and Las Vegas, and we got promoted when somebody died or retired. They got promoted whenever they created a new job for themselves.
Right.
So one of them asked me to move into marketing, and I thought that's probably a good place for me, because I wasn't that great of an engineer, but I had more engineering talent than most of the marketing people. So I did that, and I was pretty good in marketing. Ran marketing west of the Rockies for Lennox, then joined Titus to run their VAV division and get some P&L experience. Then started the AirServe franchise system, grew it to 65 locations. Then went into a consulting company, decision analyst, for a few years, which was like another grad school.
Yep.
And then from there started ServiceNation and the Service Roundtable.
Why was it important for you to start the incredible organization that is ServiceNation and provide that mentorship back to other contractors?
Well, part of it was all of the programs that were out there that were directed for contractors were focused on the top 5%.
Right.
All the manufacturer programs were the top 5%. The contractor alliances that were in place at that time were the top 5%. But 95% of the contractors didn't have anything directed towards them, and they needed the help the most.
Yep.
So this was at the dawn of the internet, and I was thinking that we could use the internet as a way to lower the average cost per additional user to almost nothing. And while that first user would be really expensive, after that it would be cheap. And so we did that. That started the Service Roundtable. When I left, we were at 5,400 member companies around the world, in the U.S., Canada, and Australia. And we also started Service World Expo. We started the Retail Contractor Coalition, which is a branding program. We started ServiceNation Alliance, which is a best practices group. Roundtable Rewards, which is the biggest buying group in the industry for contractors. So,
Yep.
So all of those were in place, and all of them just kind of evolved one after the other, although a lot of it was part of the original business plan.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really a way to serve the bulk of the contractors. And I'm passionate about it because, and I used to bring people in on interviews, and I'd be the last person because I just want to do a gut check with them.
Mm-hmm.
But I would always talk to them. I say, look, what we do is really important, right? We take people who know how to turn a wrench, and we show them how to turn a profit. And there's trade schools, but there's no owner schools.
Yep.
And these people matter because these are the people that keep our homes cool in the summer, warm in the winter. They make sure our toilets flush, our showers are hot, and our lights stay on.
Mm-hmm.
And too many of them live lives of sustenance when they deserve to live lives of prosperity. And that's where we come in. And you got to buy into this mission, and you got to believe in it, and you've got to have the contractor on a pedestal, or you can't work for me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot of my philosophy on it.
No, it's amazing. And when you look at the work that you're doing right now with, you've got a book that's coming out. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
Okay.
You've got the articles that you put out in the ACH News. It's remarkable to see, and you can see that you truly care. And
Thank you.
It's not fake. You're real and you're authentic, and truly appreciate all the contributions to the industry. I'm curious, you mentioned interviews. And when we were at ServiceNation Expo this year, we had Tom on the show.
Tom Peregrino, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And had a fantastic conversation with him. What is your favorite interview question that might be a little bit obscure to reveal a little bit more of their character and test that gut check?
Well, really we had a series of values that we had identified. There were 12 shared values of the company.
Mm-hmm.
And each of those values, that really together, that represents the corporate culture. Right. And Peter Drucker, said culture eats strategy for breakfast. That's because great strategy has to be executed.
Right.
But culture is self-executing. So if you have a strong culture, your presence isn't there all the time. And we really focused on, and we worked on that. And each value has behaviors that are associated with it, or that it drives, or that it prevents.
Right.
So behaviors drive results. So your shared values, which is your culture, result in behaviors, which drive results, which means your culture drives your results. So we had a whole series of questions that were written around the different values, and we would try to ask them in terms of experiential questions. Tell me about a time when you did something that nobody expected you to do, nobody told you to do, and you just did it. And when you ask somebody that, and they're sitting across from you at a table, and they aren't expecting something like that, they haven't thought about it, they either pull something up that's real or not. Now, what that shows is we look for people who were self-starters. We valued initiative. That was one of our values. And so we look at things like that. Creativity was another one. We would ask about, tell me about a time you did something creative. What's the most creative thing you've done in your life? And not everybody on our team was creative, but certainly the graphic designers were,
right?
The marketing people were,
right?
And so we would ask those questions to try to reveal whether they had behaviors consistent with our values. And really, what happens when you go through this exercise, and I would teach contractors to do this too, is your hiring results go dramatically up. Right. And you find that you're hiring people that fit your organization if you test them against your shared values. Right. And you test them by asking behavioral type questions and hypotheticals.
Right. And actually the first one that you said, I remember that from Tom's interview, in asking that, I'm like, oh, that's actually a really good question, because now you're thinking, a lot of people prepare for an interview by thinking, okay, what are the technical skills that they're going to ask me in my interview? But when you ask those behavior ones, you almost catch them off guard in a sense. And it's not like you want to catch them. Well, sometimes you do, right? But when you ask them that, now you're disarming them and you're actually getting to the real person.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, too many of them are easy. It's like, what's your biggest fault? Oh, well, people tell me I work too hard.
Tell me about your 5-year plan.
Right?
Right.
5-year plans. Jeez.
Your message that you put out on Facebook a couple weeks ago, talking about your predictions for this year, your article that you put out as well.
So let's go back to COVID, right?
Yeah.
So 2020 rolls around, all of a sudden we find COVID happening, and it's just insane. And at that time I'd sold the company,
right?
And we had corporate parents, and the corporate parents had a big meeting, and they made an announcement that, well, let's just be real, there's going to be layoffs. And I'm like, no. Do not say that. Do not say that when everybody's working from home. Because, so I started rallying our team together. We had our own meeting right after that. And I said, focused everybody on what we could do to help the contractors. Right. And then I wanted them focused on helping other people so they don't focus on their own problems. Right. And I promised them nobody's going to get laid off. And then went to work trying to find anything I could that would be data-driven, that would support the contention that I thought we were going to grow, because I believed we were going to grow that year anyway. Right. In the process, I went back to some of my old Linux days where we used to do corporate forecasts, and we would look at AHRI numbers and go back 15 years to forecast the replacement market. Right. And so I did that, and 15 years before 2020 was 2005, which was the record year in the history of the industry. And there had been a big jump from 04 to 05. And then I'm looking at 2019, where we had deferred replacements into 2020 because it was a late summer. Right. So I'm thinking 2020 is going to be there is a lot of pent up demand. And even if some of it gets deferred and pushed out into future years, there's still going to be more demand than there was the year before. And it's probably going to be a record year. And so I went out hard with that message. And I remember talking to several manufacturers who were just, I sure hope you're right. Bless your heart. Yeah. I mean, they were projecting 20% declines as their optimistic projection. And I'm saying it's not going to happen. And I talked to the trade associations, and I'm fighting to try to get some optimism, because I think it was deserved and merited. Because people working from home were people that typically, the homeowners had office jobs. They were furloughed or sent home. They were not the people that were laid off. The people who were laid off tended to be renters in the hospitality industry and the restaurant industry, and hotels and retail. So it made sense to me that air conditioners and were going to run more, and they were going to run more, and they were going to wear out faster, and problems that probably didn't get revealed because people were at the office during the afternoon will now come to light, and they'll want to get them taken care of. So we pushed it really hard. We went out in the trade press, and really I'd say it's just history and math, right? Just looking at the history and being able to project that forward. It's really easy to project the replacement market.
Right.
So we did that. We proved right. I didn't have anybody laid off. We got through COVID, and then everybody starts saying, well, what's going to happen next year? So, and then the year after that, what's going to happen this year?
Yep.
And I'm basically just doing history and math and looking at what happened the previous year. And so what we're looking at now is, we call it the shipment cliff. And the shipment cliff is 2005 to 2009 and 10. We saw the industry contract 40%.
Right.
So that's the replacement market, right? So we're going to see a 40% contraction in the replacement market. It's structural. It's built in. There's nothing we can do about it. And the deferrals from COVID from 2020 into 2021 and the early part of 2022 slowed some of that, but it can't make it go away. It showed up at the end of 2022, and it showed up last year, and that's where we saw shipment numbers down 15 to 16% on unitary air conditioning and heat pumps, and gas furnaces down about 24, 25%.
Right.
So we're going to have another couple of years of that. And I'm optimistic when you should be optimistic, and I'm realistic when you need to be real. And let's be real. The market is going to contract for a little while, and contractors better get really good at the fundamentals of marketing and business development and relationship building within their communities if they're going to survive. And if they try to pull in and they try to save their way to prosperity and they try to avoid, spending money, they're going to go away and they're going to get eaten.
And I like the part that it's all data driven. Right. And then when you say that, it's like, you're not like some massive profit oracle. You just looked at the data to say, okay, well, hey, you know what happened here when 15 years later, right? And it's almost like a super tsunami in a sense because of what happened with COVID. People are home more, and that's what you're saying. But it's fascinating. When you look at the fundamentals of marketing, though, in transitioning and pivoting a business first off, I love the part of keep spending money, because even in recessions, you need to keep spending money. But if somebody's listening to this and they might be, okay, well, I'm in the boat of, well, I don't really know what those fundamentals are. Let's break a couple of those points down.
So let's take your typical residential contractor. First off, they need to be some things that any contractor can do regardless of budget. One, they got to rewrap their trucks. If they're driving around a white truck, they're driving around an abduction van, right? They're scared.
He had a slide in his show yesterday that it was a white van. It just said free candy with like handprints, and it was painted in red on it. Like it was fantastic.
Send that to Dan Antonelli.
So and long before, I'm not at a level of Antonelli at all, but long before he came around, we had mobile marketing presentations, and we talked about wrapping trucks and the need for that. And all you have to do is look at the brand recognition that DHL has. It's been a long time since DHL actually had national advertising campaigns, but they've got stronger brand recognition than any brand in the HVAC industry, all because you think of big yellow trucks, right? And any contractor that does a good wrap job on their truck will drive brand awareness and brand impressions probably to a greater degree than any of the equipment or any of the products that he sells. So that's one of the top things that I do. Another thing is get involved in the community. Join a Rotary Club, Lions, Kiwanis, Optimus, Civitan. Get involved with community centers of influence, and your personal relationships can network out from that, and you can run rings around any of the larger private equity companies or any larger contractor, and just by being flexible. And then continue to do advertising, continue to do direct marketing, direct mail, and do digital. But there's a lot of competition in digital right now, so don't overlook some of the old classics, because I go to my mailbox now, and there's a lot less junk mail than there used to be, and it gets more attention. And I'm kind of one of these guys that I would read it anyway, just because I'm looking for marketing ideas. But the people that have stayed with that and have kept a steady marketing focus going are the ones who are doing better. And there's so many opportunities in this type of market because everybody else is scared. You're going to see contractors willing to sell their business for pennies on the dollar just to get out of the industry.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see them fail, and you're going to be able to take up share from that. For a good aggressive contractor,
purchasing opportunity too.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, and it's also compounded too because you have the natural dip in installations, but it's also now coming into recession, and which then obviously compounds that issue a lot further. But here's the thing: is if you look back at the data and you go back in advertising since World War II onwards, and guess what? Recessions are cyclical, so when they go down, they come back up. But the companies that have actually continued to spend money on advertising, continue to invest in their business, come out ahead of those that don't. And it's a mindset thing that people have to understand. The easiest item to slash off a budget is marketing.
Right.
But it's actually should be the last thing that you
Right.
should slash off your budget.
Now, the first recession occurs between the years. And if you decide not to participate, and it is a decision, you don't have to participate in the recession. And we can go back and look at, I've studied the Great Depression, right? And the Great Depression wasn't bad for a lot of companies. And this is when Kellogg's leaped past CW Post and Company in cereals.
Right.
It's when General Motors let past Ford in terms of sales because they marketed better.
Yep.
They kept going as though there was no recession, and for them there was less of one.
Yep. GE, same thing.
Right.
Yep.
Well, and the number that I heard is a recession is a 3% reduction in economic activity. Like, okay, when you're talking trillions, big number, but really, is it that big of a number?
It's so the example that I used in the presentation yesterday was if you go out and you run in a 5K race and you get into a headwind. Well, some of the guys that are running with you will stop and walk, and some will sit down. But if you put forth a little bit more effort, you can maintain your same pace.
Correct.
And you will create a gap between you and your competition that they'll never be able to make up. And eventually, that headwind will turn around, and it'll be a tailwind, and you'll be flying down the road. Same thing happens in this. Your personal efforts as a owner of a contracting company can overcome 5%. Right? You can work 5% harder. You can get your team to work 5% harder. And just from working harder, and not to mention working smarter, you can overcome the recessionary impacts.
Right.
And it starts, like you're talking about, it starts between when you make a decision that I am not going to participate, and you keep pounding that on your team and reinforcing it, and they'll start believing you.
Right.
I had one of our team members ask that question, like, "Are you worried about the recession?" Like, what recession? but it's true. Like, it's really the mindset. And like, okay, it goes down, but yeah, when you continue to push forward, you can continue to do those sorts of things.
Well, and this was your message. You started off talking about fear is perception and reality. And as the leader, everyone's looking at you to step up. And are you wavering in the wind? Are you afraid? Are you cautious? Are you pulling back? Or are you the one that's steadfast and stoic and showing up and saying, we're going to persevere? And you also talked about a concept about saving nickels or collecting nickels.
So I think there's always opportunities to cut fat in an organization without cutting muscle.
Correct.
And part of it starts with an awareness that you look for those opportunities. And I started this when we had a bad quarter, and it was not anybody, it was my fault. It was nobody else's fault.
Right.
And I made a mistake. I knew what the mistake was, and I fixed it. But we couldn't have it happen again. And we're sitting there looking at a break even, like a $5,000 net profit for the quarter. And I pulled the team in and I said, here's where we are. Here's what happened. I said, can you get 5 cents more for every dollar in sales? Is there a way we can add stuff on? We can do things a little bit. Can we get another nickel for every dollar sales? Everybody, yeah, I guess we could do that. Can we cut 5 cents out of everything that we spend? And everybody's kind of said, yeah, I guess we can do that. And magically, when you add 5% to the top line and you take 5% out of overhead, 10% falls to the bottom line. I said, we do that and we're 10%. We have a 10% net. Then there'll be bonuses, extra bonuses for everybody. And we hit it and we did it, and everybody was happy and thrilled. And once you go through that, people start to believe you within your organization. And then when you say, we're not going to participate, they get it. Right.
Yep.
And we reinforced it. We passed out nickels in coin collector cases, and when I left, there were still people that kept those on their desks. just as a reminder. And they would talk about watching their nickels, and that became, it wasn't it wasn't in our value system, but it really became part of our corporate culture.
Right. Well, and I'm glad you mentioned culture, because I was going to bring it right back full circle to the very beginning. When you bring those things into the business and you get the buy-in, now that's part of the culture, and now that continues to go forward, especially when you did it. But the biggest thing, hit it and did it. That's the other part. Talking about bonuses, a lot of times people talk about those things and they say we're going to do it, and then they hit it, but they don't actually do it on the back end, and that's a powerful piece.
No, you've got to treat your people well, and you've got to reward them. And my buddy Steve Miles in St. Louis says, if my guys aren't making the most money of anybody, any contractor in the market, it's not their fault.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well,
so we had Steve on the show when we were at Service World Expo. Yeah, great guy.
People, product, price.
Yep.
But there's two offshoots to the people: is your team and then your customers, and it's team and then your customers, not customers and then your team. When you treat your people right, guess what they do to your customers? They in turn then treat them right.
Well, so here's the irony. If you want to put your customers first, you've got to put them second.
Mm-hmm.
You got to put your people first, and you've got to demonstrate to your people that they have first place in your heart, and then they will in turn put your customers first.
Yep.
Right. So to put your customers first, put them second, put your team first. Remember, the customer's not always right, but the customer is always the customer. But you will always stand behind your team. You've always got to have their backs.
Right.
There's the Marines, when they form up for chow, the officers get at the back of the line.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody tells them to do it; they just do it.
Right.
So what are they doing? Simon Sinek wrote a book based on that called Leaders Eat Last.
Mm-hmm.
Why are they doing that? They're doing that because they're showing to these guys that when they're out in the sharp end, that their leaders have their backs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's little things that demonstrate that, and they do it over and over and over again. And you've got to be hyper aware of those as a business leader.
Mm-hmm. I believe it was a Navy commander who started doing that first. I remember hearing a story once upon a yesteryear about that, and like, this is kind of a squirrel of a tangent, but it was a Navy commander, and they were wondering why that the team had such buy-in to everything that he was doing as well, and they came and toured it, and guess what? He was always at the very back, and he was always eating last, where it was completely opposite for the longest of times.
Well, he was demonstrating servant leadership,
Yes,
and
yes.
he had the worst ship of the Navy by all the ratings. We had him speak at a meeting, and he turned it around in a very short time to one of the best ships in the Navy.
Do you know exactly who I'm talking?
Yeah.
I forget the name, but yeah, I remember the story. Yeah. Maybe it was from listening to the book from Simon Sinek.
Well, we did have him as a speaker.
Nice.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
One of our favorite parts of the show is our random question generator.
Oh, you have one pulled up.
It has nothing to do with anything that we've been talking about, but ironically, it has something to do with what we talked about right at the very beginning. Normally we choose 3, but last minute on the phone, pulled it up.
Or, you know what? I could probably pull some from the team from the previous time earlier in the day. We can pull up 3.
Oh, that's all right. We got one here, and I actually
right.
really like this one, so you don't get to choose. Sorry. What is one of the great values that guides your life?
To be honest, Jesus Christ and the Bible. I mean, if I used to joke that I'm a pretty good Methodist. I'm not necessarily a great Christian, but I'm a pretty good Methodist. But if you are not a Christian, following the lessons and prescripts of Christ and Christianity will cause you to lead a good life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great way to live, regardless of your beliefs. And if you believe, there's no other way to live.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and it doesn't have to necessarily be a religious thing either. I mean, it's something that's greater than yourself. Right. And I love the Bible. I'm not religious, but the biblical quote that always resonates with me is do unto others as you would expect others to do unto you. So you treat others how you want to be treated. And when you do that, you get leaps and bounds back.
The only problem with that is sometimes you run into a masochist. So you want to treat others the way they want to be treated.
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
Correct.
Sorry,
that's what I was trying to get at, but beers.
I want to get into the consumer behavior conversation. You ran a business through the last recession. You studied the Great Depression. When we look at consumer behavior, when there is a contraction of any kind in the market, fear starts to settle in. You hear it in the news, you see it on social, it's everywhere. When we look at how we as a marketing company for us, but as contractors, how can we get ahead in the market and serve people when there's so much fear around the consumers?
Sure. Well, one thing, you don't swim against the tide, right? You know, that's frustrating.
Yeah.
So what you do is recognize, you know, where there is opportunity, and when there is fear, people aren't going to want to spend money. So you know, this is, you should be packaging and financing, right? Why? I mean, I do not understand why contractors are still selling total system price instead of selling on payments.
Right.
Right. Sell on payments. And stretch the payment out. You know, we've got 10-year financing now, so you can reduce the monthly payment. And that's the way people think. That's the way every car dealer sells. It's the way, you know, we cut the payment, make it easy for them to absorb. Find things that are affordable luxuries for them.
Yes.
Starbucks does well in recessions because it's an affordable luxury, right? I may not be able to go on the big trip I want to, but I can go buy myself a overpriced cup of coffee at Starbucks and feel good about myself for an hour. Right. So in our space, you know, we talk about affordable luxuries are things that can make the home more enjoyable and pleasant. And that's where we get into the connected home. And there's a lot of connected home products that contractors can offer as an extension of their existing services and products.
Right.
Plus, it ties the customer to them better. It gives them additional revenue streams. So that's one area to look at.
Right.
We also talk about where they have fear and where they have discomfort. And there's a lot of fear right now about crime. Well, connected home and the security aspect works there too. We have an issue where our power grids are being turned into ridiculous shapes, and we're seeing blackouts. Used to be really unusual. We hear about them all the time. Last week, Alberta, you know,
Where we're from.
Yeah, where
of
we're
all
from.
freaking places where they produce tons of energy, was sending out calls to not use your electric space heater and don't charge your EV.
Yep.
When it's minus 40 outside.
Because the grid,
Yep.
right? So
turn off your lights.
So
Yeah.
what does a consumer think of when that happens? Well, he thinks, you know, I think maybe a generator would be nice because then I don't have to worry about that, and you're selling peace of mind.
My wife said this. We should probably go look at buying a generator.
Yeah,
legit. She actually said that.
I got through Snowmageddon. I went 60 hours at 0 degrees, and I sort of overdid it a little bit, but I don't really care. I got a generator. I mean, I told the look, I want to be able to add a sauna and a steam room and run them both, and all the lights in my house, and you know, and have the temperature toasty if I want to. So I have 60 kW. So it's a, you know, I can power the neighborhood.
Well, it was the sales guy that came out to you said it was 48. That's the minimum you need, right?
He said no. He said 48's more than I need.
More than you need, and you said give me 60.
Yeah.
Look, it's Texas. I mean,
it didn't cost.
Everything's bigger.
Yeah.
Now this is, he's thinking though with the scarcity mindset that a lot of contractors think. There's not a lot of difference in price between a 48 and a 60, and I know if I'm at a 60, I'm not worried. Right. So why not?
Right.
I mean, I'm already spending. You know, it's already ridiculous what I'm spending to get it anyway. Just go a little bit more.
Right. So, how did you, as the contractor, the owner, instill in your salespeople, whether it was technicians or comfort advisors, the belief and the conviction that what they were selling to people was not necessarily what they could afford themselves, but what is best for the consumer, and allowing them to make a decision?
Don't be arrogant.
Correct.
If you only offer a replacement, or if you only offer the lowest price on a replacement, you're being arrogant. You're making an assumption about what somebody can and can't afford.
Correct.
Don't be arrogant on a repair. Don't assume that somebody wants to fix something that has been causing them problems for years. Give them a choice. It is not your decision. It is their decision. Give them the options and let them decide, and you'll be surprised.
Yep.
You know, and when I was a consultant, I did some work for a water heater manufacturer, and we went out on the West Coast, and I'm talking to a distributor who sold to the big boxes and to the trade.
Yep.
And he said that he said, what percentage of standard 5-year water heaters do you think the trade sells?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I don't know, 80, 90%. And he said, nope, in our market, it's 95%. I said, what percentage of 7 and 10-year upgraded water heaters do you think the big boxes sell? And I said, I don't know, it's got to be less than the trade, right? So it's got to just be a few percent. He said, no, 30%. And all they do is they put a sign up that says good, better, best.
Mm-hmm.
And 30% of the people will buy something better than the lowest end. So I said, so you mean if we just put placards and we hung them on our plumbers and sent them out to call on people, we'd have better sales results? He said, probably.
It's perception,
Right?
right?
So-
And I mean, something so Thad and I used to sell Cutco knives, which I'm not sure if you know, but knives that college
I
kids
know
sell.
all about Cutco
There we
knives.
go. Perfect. I figured you
My
would.
daughter
Not an
sold
episode-
Cutco
yeah.
knives.
Oh, no way.
Not an episode unless we mention Cutco
We got to
knives.
mention Cutco. But an exercise that we always
And
did.
the scissors where you cut the penny.
Always
Yeah,
got to
yeah.
cut the penny, right? Even
No,
Michael Scott talked about it on The Office.
I've cut every single coin in Canadian currency with those pennies. I mean, you didn't hear that.
We're in the States right now. We're protected.
All
It's
right,
okay
perfect.
to cut costs.
I tell you, the tuning was a tough one to cut.
That would be.
Yeah.
But we would always go through an exercise in training with these kids because it was college kids. That's who we worked with. And when we look at who's coming into the trades now, it's college age kids. Kids that don't want to go to school. They want to get into the trades. And I believe there should be more of them, but that's a whole nother topic. And we would write out on the board how much it costs to live as a homeowner and the different expenses that a homeowner would have, and help them realize that your reality as a college student and what it is that you spend money on and what you believe to be expensive is so much different than a homeowner. And we were selling $1,000 set of knives for us as college kids was really expensive. For a homeowner, it's an investment into their home. They don't have to buy another set of knives again. That's a forever guarantee, all of that. And I remember selling my first set at $1,000 and I'm writing up the order and my butthole is so puckered. But I was nervous about it, thinking that they're going to cancel or change their mind. And they felt so good about it. So when you're able to provide that conviction back to a comfort advisor, when they're going into the home, to say, yeah, like this $20,000 investment that they're making into their home comfort, they're going to have for 10 years. The commission that you're going to make off of this will be gone next week.
I would add, that one thing, and you're absolutely correct. And we're talking about giving people choices, but sometimes customers want you to help them buy, and they will get caught up and hung up and indecisive. And when you run into those cases, you start just guiding them down to what by their responses they've indicated as their ideal choice.
Right.
And they'll stop you if you don't, and just start writing up the order and just ask them for the check. And you'd be amazed how many times they just write it.
Yeah. They don't even think about it. Do
They-
you want to make installments on that? No. I'll just write it in full. Yeah. Leading into the next topic, training. Being able to train your people, invest in your people. When we look at, again, a pullback, a recession, it's the time to invest more into your business through marketing and into your people. What's your perception on the current environment with most contractors that you see around training, and what do you think it should be?
Most contractors don't train nearly enough.
Correct.
And I think there's some contractors that have training every day, and their sales reflect it.
Yep.
And training is not an expense; it is an investment. Training is like bathing; it wears off, so do it frequently.
Yep.
I think also that in our industry we have gotten to where for years all we did was technical skills training, and it's great. Yeah, we need to do that. There's lots of options for it. Manufacturers will provide it. We can get trade school guys to come in. Lots of ways to help on that. Then we started doing, and grudgingly, guys are doing some soft skills like stand up straight, look people in the eye, smile, shake hands. We do the old thing where you knock on the door, back up, have a business card ready, smile. I mean, which these things count, right? Put on the shoe covers.
Yep.
That's all soft skills. But what we're finding is that we've got a group, a population in our technical force that is deficient in a lot of areas of life skills. And it started when we saw some contractors who started, why do these guys always broke? I'm paying them really well. And that means they're susceptible to leaving for just a little bit more per hour.
Correct.
So he started doing, he bought a Dave Ramsey course, did his version of it, and started teaching them personal financial management. Well, nobody had ever taught him personal financial management.
Yep.
That's why they were always broke. That's why
Right.
they were paid well. And they didn't have money because they didn't know how to manage their money.
Correct.
And once they started figuring this out, and once they started paying down their debt, it changed their lives. It changed their attitudes, and it spun from there into additional training. That's training on character, training on being a good person, being a good father, training on being a good husband, which it sounds like that's none of our business. Most of us want to back away from that and say, but these guys are hungry for it.
Right.
And I think mixing some life skills in, we now have a training triad. So it's like a triangle. There's technical, there's soft, and there's life skills.
Right.
And if we overlook any one of those, it's like a three-legged stool. It's going to collapse.
Mm-hmm.
And if we've got all three of them solid and in place, we're building a good foundation for our teams.
I'm curious on the technical, the soft, and the life. What's the percentage that you would advise or recommend to somebody to spend?
You're going to do more technical than anything else, just because the industry's changing, and
Sure.
you got to stay up with it.
Right.
Yep.
And soft skills, once you get through that, is kind of a reminder. The life skills, you got to know your team, and you got to kind of introduce it. And I'd really use outside package courses. There's a lot of them that are out there. Character Counts is one. We've talked about Dave Ramsey. There's Joe Gibbs packaged some stuff up that's really good, and you got to look for it. You can find it, but it's out there, and you can keep them fairly short, and it could just be part of your training meeting if you want, or you can make it a focus and make it optional, and do it over a lunch.
Right.
Well, and a lot of it comes down, you mentioned the team, and it's actually funny because every podcast we've done at AHR has talked about training extensively, and it's just such an impactful and important piece. But a lot of them talked about these life skills and these soft skills. As a business owner, you need to hone in on your soft skills and your life skills first. Yeah, I'm reminded of the lumberjack story.
Yep.
The two lumberjacks. You got the old lumberjack, the young lumberjack. They've got all day to cut through the tree. And the young guy, they both start at the same time. And the young guy just starts ripping away, cutting. Comes, I'm going to beat the old guy. The old guy sitting there, looks over. He's just
Taking a break.
Taking a break.
Yeah.
Taking a break, and they comes up and they go back and they start swinging
So
again.
he starts
and
going harder and
he
harder
starts going
and
harder and harder and harder and harder. And the old guy, finally gets up and goes and starts, swinging for a while. And then, lo and behold, young guy looks over and getting a little tired, and the old guy's sitting there taking a break again. Well, the young guy says, I'm going to beat him, so I'm going to go harder and harder and harder. It goes on and on and on. Well, the old guy beats the young guy, but at the end of the day, the young guy goes, okay, I give up. What were you doing? Like, why? Like, I was working so hard. You were breaking all day long. But I was sharpening my axe.
Yep. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah.
Stephen Covey.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? And when you do that as a business owner, when you sharpen your own axe, guess what you can then do to your people?
Mm-hmm.
You can help them sharpen their axe.
No, I think you're absolutely correct. And too many business owners neglect themselves when it comes to this. And that's why it's important to come to things like AHR and just, walk around and talk to other contractors, get involved with your local contractor association, get involved with one of the success groups. There's a number of them that are out there. Go to the industry conferences. And I think it's not just that. Go to something that Inc. Magazine puts on. Go to something that's unrelated to our industry and our trade. Get involved with a networking group. Do things to help you. And Charlie Tremendous Jones used to say that you'll be the person a year from now you'll be the person you are today, except for the people you meet and the books you read.
Mm-hmm.
So get out and meet some people and read some books.
It's funny you say get out to other events, because you come here and yeah, there's a lot of great messages. Yours from one that talks a lot about how you can better yourself, but a lot of it's also the exhibits and the people that are out there. But when you want to look at sharpening yourself, well, there's other things that you can go do. There's other places that you can go. I mean, shit, we've even talked about that for our business too.
Yep.
Of, okay, well, now we're going to have to start dividing and conquering based on our specific roles in our organizational chart to say, okay, well, you're going to probably have to go to more sales and marketing stuff. I'm probably going to have to go to other things on the business side and the operational side to be able to learn that. And in order to be able to do that, now you have to go out and expand your horizons and expand your circle.
Yep.
I think it's important to do that. I think it's some of it doesn't even have to be business related. It's just I would take breaks with with some of my team leaders, and we would go off and go hiking and do some things like that. Or we used to, after a trade show, we would try to find a river that we could kayak down.
Yeah, well, and that's that personal one-to-one.
Mhm.
And you spend that alone time. And what's the acronym that you're using earlier today?
Which one?
I don't know, the TFM something or other.
What's in it for me?
Yeah, what's in it for me, right?
WIFM.
In the WIFM acronym, right? What's in it for me, but also people don't know how much you care. People don't know how much you know until they know how much you care.
Right.
And that, again, goes back to full circle of what we talked about at the very beginning, in your people and your product and your price. And spending that time is valuable. So let's put on a business owner hat here for a second, and spending that time with somebody. I'm like, oh, I'm so busy. I'm running a business. I don't have time to go do the one-to-ones with all my individuals. What would you say to that person? You can swear too if you want.
Get your fucking act together.
We would, every quarter we try to do something offsite, some type of fun event, and we had plenty of happy hours, and we would do them at random. And after we were acquired, the acquiring company wanted us to have a lunch one day a week with all the team there. And, and I did that grudgingly, and I couldn't believe how well people liked it. So I sort of came around, and then after COVID, that became how we got people to come into the office. We have to treat people like volunteers now, right? So what do you do when you have a volunteer? You thank them. You thank them for showing up. You pat them on the back. You tell them how great they are, what a wonderful job they've done, and you give them pizza. And we've got to treat our employees that way. And again, we've got to put them first. And I think if you do that, and they see you doing it, and they experience you doing it, and it could be that you've got an employee that you find out what's going on in his life, what the problem is, and you find a way to accommodate it. I mean, I've sent people, bought them trips to Europe.
Right.
And do you think that person would ever leave after that? And it was a key person. And what did that cost me? It cost me a couple $1,000.
Right.
It's or a little more than that, but still not much.
But it's an investment, right?
Right.
And the returns on it are exponential.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I could have just put that money into her paycheck, and it would have been absorbed, and now it's expected.
Correct.
But by doing that, and it's kind of almost on a one-off, it had more impact. So what can you do to have an impact? At Christmas, I used to, if we had a good year, I would hand everybody $10, $100 bills, right? And I'd say, this is not for you to save. I want you to go out and spend this and have a good Christmas. And this is because we had a great year. And if we have another great year, we'll do it again.
Right. I love that. Well, and how can you make an impact? We talked about this morning when we were with Interplay. The ability to strategically gift to your employees that's going to have a greater impact than just on them, and get their families, their circle to be your greatest advocate. When you buy them a $5,000 mattress so that they get a better night's sleep and they show up better in a better state of mind for work the next day, but it's also impacting their spouse. When you pay for a house cleaner for a couple $100 a month, the impact that has, she's not going to let you quit now because it means you lose the house cleaner, right? So the ability to do those little things where it's a benefit that's above and beyond what is normally expected within the industry, you make an impact on the family.
And it's hard, as a business owner, it's hard to do that because we tend to think in monetary terms.
Correct.
Right. Hey, here's a $20 spiff. I'm done.
Right.
It's we've got to be empathetic, and we got to care. And I have trouble with that. I'm a recovering engineer. I mean,
well, at least we're in a cubicle here, so that's kind of at least comforting for you.
No, I'm not even gonna go there. No, I'll leave that one alone.
No, this has been a fantastic conversation. You've got a book that's coming out, and we don't know the date yet, so hold your horses, everyone. You can't go buy it yet, but I love the title of it, so I want you to take 2 minutes, talk about the book and what it's all about.
So the book is called Contractor Stories, and it's fiction. It's easy to read. It's discrete stories that communicate business lessons to contractors. One of the stories is, for example, it's called a can of success.
Mm-hmm.
So, so what if success came in a can? What would happen? And it's a whole story about a guy who finds a can of success and how it impacts his life and what he ultimately discovers and the lessons that he gets from that. And it's just kind of different. And there's a one where, about a cup of coffee, where a guy goes into Starbucks and somebody sits down with him and starts asking him questions, and he's having his own personal pity party, and he's a contractor, and the guy starts asking him, leading him with the Socratic method into seeing his life and his business differently, in his situation differently. And then the guy discovers that this is a former contractor and he was just paying it forward. So, there are things like that. And it's easy for anybody to read. Mark Madison, who's one of my good friends and has written a number of books, he says, you want to write 4 flushers. So he said, books that you can read in 4 flushes, they'll succeed in their trade.
Well, they when you hear that,
That'll
it
work
almost
well
reminds
for plumbers, I
right?
think. Yeah.
It almost reminds, except for when they're in their vehicle in a pail.
That's the new construction
right?
sites. Yeah.
Big mouth Dr.
You
Pepper
can
bottle.
you can actually buy a toilet seat that fits over your pail. But it reminds me a lot of the Patrick Lencioni books, and like when you hear his and what he talks about, it's educational pieces through fables and stories,
Right.
which is great. And so I can't wait to get our copy as well. Buy our copy. We'll buy it. I mean, maybe we'll have an affiliate link and we'll send it out to our network.
Well, I mentioned stories. And stories. See, we talked in stories long before we had a written language. We'd sit around a tribal campfire and we would tell stories that would keep us alive, stories about where to find food, what not to eat, what not to touch, things to do, how to heal people. And it's part of our DNA. And there's a reason that, 2,000 years ago, Christ talked in terms of stories we call parables, and we still talk about those today. We remember stories, and stories convey lessons that we understand. We're a storytelling and absorbing people.
Correct. 100% agree with that.
Yep. Well, Matt, as we wrap up, we've got one final question for you.
What is one question that you wished people would ask you more, but don't?
What is one question that people wish they could ask me more?
No, what is one question that you wished people would ask you more, but don't? And it could be business, life, anything. Does not have to be HVAC and plumbing related at all.
Would you like to go hunting with me tomorrow?
Sold. I'm in. Where are we going? Well, you know what? We should bring you up to Alberta. You could shoot a proper mule buck, proper whitetail. And
he just doesn't want to bring a gun across the border. So as long as you can provide it for him.
Done. Sold.
There you go.
All right.
I would I've heard the meat take's actually pretty good. It tastes like chicken.
Is that a gator?
Yeah. It is.
Yeah. Nice.
It is. No, and
we'll
black
throw that
bear
on
is
there
on
for
my
you.
list.
Yeah. Sorry?
Black bear is on my list.
Yeah, I've heard good things about them too. So I actually have had black bear steak or bear steak. I don't know if it's black bear.
It was
I've had
black
bear
bear.
steak. Yeah, it was actually really tasty. Thoroughly impressed by it and surprised.
If you apparently if you get them right after they've eaten a bunch of berries, that in that
Extra
time
flavor.
of the year, yeah, it's supposedly it's really good.
Well, that's why probably why I feel a little bit blessed with the deer and the elk and the moose that I shoot is because they're grain finished. They're on the prairies. They're eating all the farmers' grain right at the end of the year, and then that's when you get them. And they're grain finished, tasty.
Mine eat plenty of grain too.
Yeah.
Strategically placed.
Strategically
There you
tries,
go.
yeah, and probably some alfalfa and some salt cubes, but we don't need to necessarily go that far.
Matt, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us.
And if anybody wants to reach out and ask you any questions, where are they going to find you?
My email address is mattmichel@mail.com. That's MattMichel @mail.com, not Gmail, mail.com. And you can text me at 214-995-8889. That's 214-995-8889, or call. And, you can connect with me on Facebook or LinkedIn.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you for taking some time out of the HR Expo in lovely Chicago to meet with us.
Thank you.
And until next time.
Cheers. Well, that's a wrap on another episode of HVAC Success Secrets Revealed. Before you go, two quick things. First off, join our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/HVAC Revealed. The other thing, if you took one tiny bit of information out of this show, no matter how big, no matter how small, all we ask is for you to introduce this to one person in your contacts list. That's it. That's all. One person. So they too can unleash the ultimate HVAC business. Until next time, cheers.